Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. This is a request from one of my community members. Thank you so much again for the request. Who was it that's there this year? Goose. Thank you, Goose. Appreciate that. Now, what I want to do is kind of reiterate a super important place on the price action before we take a look at liquidation. Okay, so if we kind of zoom out and we look at the daily time frame, ever since we've been in this range, there's a thing referred to as a point of control that is just below the price action. So it's right around that 16.8, 16.7 range here for us. And what's great about that is that's just above our local high. So it's very common for coins to retest the local high before they take off. So I'm going to have my sights set on that area because I do believe Bitcoin will pull back a little bit further to the 92K, maybe 90K range. And if that happens, I think we'll see that mid to upper 16 cent range here for Doge. And that should be a perfect place to take a long. Just kind of thinking outside the box right now, or just, abstractly more macro perspective here. That may not come to pass, but if it does, it'll be a pretty sweet consideration for entry. Now let's take a look at the back end liquidation data, kind of see where we're at. And while this is loading, I have to ask you to hit the like button, comment below, folks. Do that every single video. It really helps grow the channel, gets us in front of more people, so less moon boys get the views. It's not like I want them to not get as many views. I just think it's ridiculous that they get so many because they're like emotional idiots. So again, if you want just super awesome neutral analysis here that's just kind of straightforward, that's what I'm always going to give you there. And you can return that favor by hitting the like button every single video and letting me know where you're at with your Dogecoin. I averaged in pretty nice in the 15 to 16 cent range myself here recently, hoping that I might get one last entry before things take off. So 17 to 16 cents is a lot of liquidation. So that does incentivize the price to come lower. We can see from a macro perspective as well, there's a lot more liquidation here too, just overall. So it's kind of obvious to me that we may see a little bit lower of a price action. And once more, mainly because we have that local high retested as a new low as a potential, and we're kind of working our way down here with lower highs and lower lows, and Bitcoin is exuding a lot of bearish behavior. It also broke free or broke down from its rising wedge pattern, and it has a manipulative power of 3 pattern so far here at this point. Watch my Bitcoin analysis. I do it every single day, so if you're not familiar with that, make sure you check that out. Also, be sure to check us out over at Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Really got some good content there flowing your way. And then obviously as well, we use Bitunix. Phenomenal exchange, excellent rewards. Use my link to register. Highly recommend them. They've been a phenomenal exchange to us. Last but not least, let's look at open interest and recognize that there's a lot of support below us, okay? So I'm not claiming that we're just gonna see the price drop super hard, but I am proposing that these are the good areas to consider averaging in if you were to do so, okay? So 1710 or 17.1 is that lower, more recent local point of control there. That's where we have a heavy amount of open interest. Secondary to that, what do you know? Right in that 16.5 cent range at 16.4. So 16.6, 16.4, you can see kind of an average price there kind of becoming more consistent. And that's something to pay attention to. So that's the case there. We also can see this fair value gap as low as about 16.4. What do you know? That's the exact same level we just looked at for open interest. So we got a tremendous amount of open interest and points of control there. Those are important things to factor in. I don't think a lot of people really take a look at those. And what we want to see is if there's any confluence on our lower timeframes with fib levels as well. From a daily perspective, though, we've also got more confluence here at 16.8 with that 50 and 20-day SMA hanging out right there. We've got the 50 and the RSI below the price. That's a very good sign. Money flow index above or over our moving average. Minus stochastic swinging down on the daily time frame, we're more likely to go up in the overall sense. This is a very good situation here for Dogecoin. Furthermore, 4-hour time frame, also recognizing that we are kind of smack dab in the middle of all the moving averages. But look at this here, a local point of control right there at about 18.1. Perform perfectly. And what I mean by that is once you break your ascending trend line here, you see this higher low pattern, you can see the price action come back up to retest at that point of control, rejected, continues lower. So now that's a new resistance. 18.1 is a new resistance. So if you happen to take a long position between now and 16.4, you want to secure profits before we get to that level, okay? So that would be a good consideration for a take profit target. People are always wondering, how do you set profit targets? Sometimes it's based on a percentile that you use that's consistent. I like to shoot for 4% movements at 5x leverage. That gives me 20% gains, but not everyone does that, okay? And to give you perspective here, like we shorted ETH this morning, for example, in 2 hours we hit our target. They're roughly, again, 22% on a 10x leverage short from 1790 to 1750. Okay, so it's all there for you. Obviously, if you want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is a site. The last thing I want to reference here is just the simple fact that we're probably going to have some confluence at this 0.618 fib level, which I'll go ahead and once again, I'll post this playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. But look at this number here, 16.8, 16.6. Both, there's so many signs pointing to that level as being a good area. I'm heavily considering an entry in the 16.8 range. So I'm going to go ahead and add an alert there. If that comes to pass, I'll be happy to take a long. But once more, folks, it's super common for a previous high to work as a new low. And with our macro point of control being in that range, we got our open interest support there. I think the probability going much lower than 16.4 is tremendously low. Okay, so that's those are my thoughts here, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are too. Why don't you comment below? Let us know where you're at. I do appreciate you watching either way. Thanks again so much for it. We'll look forward to seeing the next one. Have yourself a great rest of your day. Take care.